Every level of boxing skill explained. Level 1, trash. The bottom of the barrel. These are the boxers who couldn't throw a jab to save their life. I'm talking about influencer types, guys who got famous on TikTok, decided to lace up some gloves and suddenly thought they were Muhammad Ali. Spoiler alert, they're not. They can't move their head. Their footwork looks like they're ice skating for the first time. Their punches, slow, looping, and wide open for a counter. Honestly, if you shadowboxed in the mirror for 5 minutes, you'd already look better than half the people in this category. And the worst part? They're convinced they're good. They step into the ring with all the confidence in the world, throwing haymakers like they're auditioning for a street fight YouTube clip. Nobody's watching them because they're boxers. People are watching because it's hilarious to see somebody with 6 million Instagram followers get punched in the face for the first time. Back in the day, you had guys working their whole lives in the amateurs to go pro. Now, you've got some kid who unboxed Pokemon cards last year thinking he can headline a pay-per-view. Bro, pick a lane. At this level, you don't actually take the fight seriously. You either watch it as a joke or you tolerate it for the chaos. But no one is tuning in to study the sweet science from level 1 boxing. This is trash boxing. And the only thing worse than their technique is the fact that some of them actually think they belong in the same sport as real fighters. Level 2. Unlike the level 1 influencer boxers, level 2 guys are actual fighters. They've trained for years, they've been in real gyms, and they've proven themselves in the ring. But the truth is, they're stuck in that awkward middle ground. They're good enough to hang around, not good enough to be elite. This is the land of the journeyman. Fighters who show flashes of talent, but never quite put the whole package together. Take Derek Chisora. He's fought everyone. Seriously, go look at his resume. If you're a heavyweight with a name, odds are you've shared the ring with him. And that's exactly the point. Chisora has carved out a career by being the test. He's durable, he's scrappy, he makes for a fun fight, but nobody's mistaking him for a world beater. Then you've got someone like Ryan Garcia, a highly skilled pro with real skills. He's fast, explosive, and has highlight reels full of lightning counters that can end a fight in a split second. The issue? He hasn't shown he can hang with the absolute best in his division. Against the top guys, he just looks a step behind. Not terrible, not embarrassing, but clearly outclassed when it matters most. That's the defining feature of level 2. These fighters have talent. They can win big fights, and sometimes they even steal the spotlight for a night. But they're inconsistent. They're missing that extra gear that separates dangerous from dominant. Promoters love them because they're the perfect litmus test. You put them in with a rising star, and you find out if that prospect is the real deal. Win impressively, you're moving up. Struggle or lose, maybe you weren't ready. So level 2 fighters aren't trash, they're necessary. They're the gatekeepers, the guys who make the sport move forward. But at the end of the day, nobody's talking about them as all-time greats. Level 3, these guys aren't trash, and they're not gatekeepers either. In fact, level 3 fighters are usually champions, with real title defenses on their record. They're legit. The issue is, they just haven't shown enough to be considered truly elite or pound-for-pound greats. Enter Gervonta Davis. Tank is a knockout machine. One of the most exciting fighters in the sport today. Every time he steps into the ring, people tune in because they know somebody's going to sleep. That power is undeniable, and it's carried him to titles in multiple divisions. But here's the catch. Tank has yet to prove himself against the very best of the best. He's knocked out plenty of good fighters, but where's the defining win over a fellow pound-for-pound name? Until he steps in with the likes of Haney, Shakur, there's always going to be that asterisk next to his name. That's the story with level 3 boxers. They're successful. They win belts, they defend them, they build impressive highlight reels, but the competition they take or avoid keeps them from breaking into the higher levels. They live in that gray zone where the mainstream calls them superstars, but hardcore fans are still asking questions. And it's not just Tank. Plenty of fighters in this category are talented enough to dominate a division, but not consistent enough or bold enough to prove themselves across eras and weight classes. They can headline a pay-per-view, sell out arenas, and excite fans, but when it comes to legacy, they're still waiting for that signature fight that puts them in the pound-for-pound conversation. Level 3 fighters are great for the sport. They bring hype, they bring drama, and they keep divisions buzzing. But until they face the very best and come out on top, they'll always be remembered as good champions, not the greatest. Level 4, great, but not the greatest. Level 4, boxers are great fighters, talented champions, dominant in stretches, sometimes even era-defining in popularity, but here's the thing. Nobody's putting them in the greatest ever debate for their division. Think Tyson Fury, an incredible heavyweight. The man outboxed Vladimir Klitschko when nobody thought it was possible, then came back from the brink of retirement to topple Deontay Wilder in one of the greatest trilogies ever. That resume is legendary in its own right. But then came Alexander Usyk, and just like that, the idea of Fury being the undisputed best of his era crumbled. He's great, but not untouchable. Same with Anthony Joshua. Two-time heavyweight champion, Olympic gold medalist, global superstar. On paper, everything about AJ screams all-time great. But in practice, the losses to Andy Ruiz and then Usyk reminded everyone that he belongs just a step below the very top. Dangerous? Yes. Legendary? Not quite. That's the defining trait of level 4. These fighters are respected champions, sometimes even generational names. But when you stack them up against the absolute best of their weight class, they just don't quite measure up. They might dominate a weaker era, they might bring millions of fans into the sport, but when the dust settles, they're not in the GOAT conversations. And honestly, that's okay. Boxing needs these guys. They keep divisions competitive. They draw crowds. Without level 4, there is no drama, no rivalries, no passing of the torch. But when fans sit around debating the best to ever do it, their names won't be at the very top of the list. They're level 4, outstanding fighters, just not the definitive kings of their divisions. Level 5. Level 5 is where boxing greatness becomes undeniable. These aren't just champions with a belt and a couple defenses. These are fighters whose names always come up when people argue about the best to ever do it in a given division. Maybe they're not the consensus number 1, but they're always in the conversation. The thing that defines this level is legacy. They don't just win, they dominate in a way that leaves a permanent mark. Their careers spark debate. Their fights are studied and their highlights get replayed decades later. You can't talk about their division's history without bringing them up. Mike Tyson is the most obvious example. In his prime, he was a force of nature, the youngest heavyweight champion ever, terrifying opponents before the bell even rang. Some fans say his career fizzled too early. Others point to the lack of elite wins in his later years, but that doesn't matter. His run at the top was so electric, so brutal, that people still argue about whether he was the greatest heavyweight ever, or at least a lock for the top 5. Lennox Lewis represents the other side of the same coin. Where Tyson burned fast, Lewis burned steady. He fought everyone, avenged his only 2 losses, and retired on top. He may not have had Tyson's cultural aura, but his resume is ironclad. Some fans even rate him above Tyson for that reason. And then there's Thomas the Hitman Hearns. Hearns didn't just compete in one division. He left his fingerprints all over boxing history, from welterweight up to light heavyweight. With his freakish height, face anyone. Hearns built one of the most exciting resumes ever. He gave us classics against Sugar Ray Leonard and Marvin Hagler, and for many, he's the prototype of what a dangerous all-action champion should be. Level 5 boxers are the backbone of boxing history. They don't just belong to their era, they shape it. Level 6. Now we're talking about the rare air. Level 6 fighters aren't just champions. They're not just in top 5 of their division debates. These are the guys who define entire generations of boxing. When their names come up, the question isn't, were they great? It's, are they the greatest of all time? Take Floyd Mayweather. Love him or hate him, the man perfected the art of winning. Undefeated in 50 fights, a master of defense, timing, and ring IQ. He didn't just beat opponents, he neutralized them, made elite fighters look ordinary. For his generation, Floyd wasn't just one of the best, he was the standard. Manny Pacquiao is the flip side of that coin, an 8-division world champion. The only man in history to pull it off. He wasn't just winning belts, he was conquering weight classes like no one else before him. From flyweight to welterweight, Pacquiao's icon. When fans argue about who carried the sport in the 2000s and 2010s, it's always Pacquiao and Mayweather at the top of the conversation. Then there's Roy Jones Jr. In his prime, he looked like he was from the future. Lightning reflexes, insane athleticism, showboating confidence. He could do things in the ring that nobody else even dreamed of trying. Pound for pound, Prime Roy might be the most naturally gifted boxer to ever step between the ropes. And today we've got names like Terence Crawford and Alexander Usyk carrying that torch. Crawford just became undisputed champion in 3 different weight classes, a feat so rare, it almost doesn't sound real. Usyk, meanwhile, is rewriting heavyweight history after clearing out cruiserweight. Beating Anthony Joshua twice and then outclassing Tyson Fury put him on a trajectory where, if he keeps winning, people will be forced to rank him alongside the all-time greats. That's what Level 6 is all about. Fighters who dominate not just a weight class, but an era. Some of them already have a claim to being the greatest ever. Others are still writing the story, but you can feel it. You can see the path being laid out in real time. These are the legends of their generation. Fighters who will never be forgotten. Level 7? Level 7 is the peak of boxing. This isn't just about being a champion or even dominating a generation. This is the level reserved for the rare fighter whose name becomes bigger than the sport itself. Muhammad Ali stands here alone as the clearest example. The speed, the footwork, the charisma, the rivalries, everything about Ali elevated boxing to a global stage. His fights weren't just sporting events, they were cultural moments. That's what Level 7 means. It's not simply about titles or records, though Ali had plenty of both. It's about immortality.